Good evening, y'all. Ooh. Oh gosh. Hello, hello. How are you? Okay. I thought I had a poll set up on here, but I don't know if I did it right. I swear. Mm, did I do it? Oh, I did. Okay. Nope, I did not. Okay, we're starting it now. Hi, you guys. I am doing very well. I can't complain. And I heard it doesn't do any good if you do, anyways. It got like super cold again. It was all starting to get springtime over here for a little bit, and then the temperature dropped again today. So whatever, it's fine. Is what it is. So I have a poll going on my TikTok live. So we'll see what everybody wants to talk to. Can we discuss rumination? I feel like it's happening again. Girl, I'm always down to talk about rumination because that was like my biggest hurdle to get over. So yes. And what's interesting is I kind of strategically picked the topics on the poll because they all relate to rumination too. Rumination is a pain in the butt. So yes, we will definitely talk about it. Okay, and guys, just so you know, I just have to say it because I'm still really excited about it. Y'all been asking for, oh my gosh, I need to go get them. Hold on, pause. I don't know why I didn't bring them over here. Pause for a second, just in case you, well, I'm sure you did miss my video because TikTok's kind of on its BS right now. With views, if y'all haven't heard, it's been crazy. So let me go get something. I have something to show y'all. Literally give me like 3 seconds. Maybe more than 3. I'm coming. Can y'all tell this was like spontaneous? I'm not prepared at all. It's fine though. Okay, so while we're waiting on the poll to see what we want to talk about today. So y'all been asking, and I finally got it done. We have mugs now. I officially opened a shop for the Yellow Mug Talks. This one was like the top voted one when I was asking you guys what designs y'all liked. Look how cute it turned out. It's so cute. So we have that one. We have this one, which was, these were the top 3. This one was really close to. Same thing, it has the yellow on the inside. These are the small ones for like the people who say they love coffee, but the people that really love coffee, I have a big one. Don't worry. And this one turned out really cute too. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is one of the sweatshirts on there too. One of the most comfortable sweatshirts I've ever owned. But we officially have a shop. It's exciting. So it's linked onto the link in my bio. So feel free to go and shop around. There's like 26 different things. We have the water bottles too. It's super exciting. I'm kind of geeking out over it. I honestly never thought that I would have a merch line, but because y'all asked, it kind of forced me to get out of my comfort zone. So it's there. It's live. It's official. It's also on my Facebook. It's directly on my Facebook and my Instagram. But for TikTok and YouTube, it just go to the link in my bio and you'll be able to find it. The big one, I know, it's so cute. It's really cute. This one's just the white one, but they did turn out really cute. And just again, while we're waiting on the poll to come in and people to vote and stuff, can y'all see the poll, by the way, on TikTok if you're on live there? I'm live on a couple of platforms right now, so if y'all can, you should see it when you pop in. If not, it should be somewhere. So let me know if you don't see it. It says it's in progress, but I'm not sure. But if you guys do order stuff, I have it on the page on everything, but just keep in mind everything's made to order. So it does take about 10 days for stuff to come in. So just a heads up on that. I'll be buying your books soon, especially since I'm recovering from surgery. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Well, take your time. I'll drink my coffee and secretly hear you with Yellow Mug talk. You'll pour your coffee and then say, all right, let's go. Okay, so far, right now it's looking like managing emotions is in the lead on topics to discuss today, which that ties in very well with rumination since we've already had a request to talk about that as well. So we will for sure do that. 1 year and 6 months, no contact. That is awesome. Congratulations. That's huge. That is awesome. Anybody else have any small victories for the day or the week? Small victories, big victories, any victory at all? I want to hear about them. Okay, so the poll is on TikTok, but let me, sorry, I had someone comment on here. So the poll is, there's 4 topics to discuss. No contact for 4 months. Awesome job. I love your username, coffee before mascara. Amen. Coffee before pretty much anything. I'm just going to do a manual poll in here. Ooh. Y'all bear with me. I'm still learning how to go live on like multiple platforms at one time, so sorry. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, y'all can just comment on there what y'all want to talk about, and then we'll go from there. Really tied together the physical connection of the brain damage and narcissism. Absolutely, there is, and I'm glad that more. I'm looking forward to more research being done on that, just so that way it can be legitimized. Which they've done a lot of research on like trauma and what that does to the brain, and it's a very real thing. Hi, Britt. Yay for no contact any amount of time. Amen to that. Whether it's 6 minutes or 6 years, if you're going no contact, that is a rough journey, and I'm very, very proud of you. But yeah, I'm excited to see more research coming up over that for sure. If you guys are no contact, comment on there how long you've gone no contact. I want to hear about it. And if you're not no contact yet, that's okay. It took me almost 5 months to go no contact when I left. So sometimes it's a journey to get there. 6 months, awesome. 6 months, awesome. 1 year and 6 months. Congratulations, guys. 2.5 years, congratulations. Okay, coffee before mascara says controlling your emotions. That's what everybody's saying on TikTok too. That's leading the poll at the moment. It was a month, but she called. Now I have to start over. That's okay. My hardest part with no contact, well, I actually have a video in my drafts, where I talk about my no contact journey because it did take me a little while. Um, but I even considered like not looking on social media as part of no contact, and that one was really hard. That's the one that actually felt very addictive to me, because I would unblock and then immediately block back on Instagram and that kind of stuff. I didn't do that on Facebook because Facebook, I learned that the hard way. If you unblock them, you have to wait another 48 hours before you can reblock them. So that was fun when I discovered that. Um, but I would literally call them a relapse because that's how it felt. Like it felt very addictive and felt very out of my control. So it's okay. It's kind of one of those things where you celebrate how long you went because it was still amount of time that you went, and then you just aim to do a little bit better next time, and that's okay. Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes, just to kind of see on the poll what everybody wants to talk about, and then we'll just jump in. As of right now, it's looking like managing emotions and obsessive thinking. And it's interesting, guys. Like managing emotions and obsessive thinking, going no contact, like all of this really does tie in together. So I'll do my best to give y'all some good info. If y'all here, let's do this. If y'all wouldn't mind, comment on here when it comes to the managing emotions. What is it that you're struggling with? Is it um, like emotional regulation? Like you just kind of feel very on edge? Is it that you just feel sad all the time? You just don't know how to process things. Like what is it about the managing emotions that's struggle make that you're struggling with? Words are hard. It's fine. Feeling sad. Okay. And you can just type in your question if you have one. I try not to say names on here, just so you guys know, just because I usually post the replays, just so for privacy, I try not to say names. So if you have questions, just drop them in there, and I'll just repeat the question and ask it. But I try to be really respectful of people's privacy and stuff like that. Okay, so we're getting sad, feeling constantly on edge. Frustrated, sad, and angry. I hate that I think about him every day. A lot of feeling sad. So I'm seeing anger. Okay, that gives me a good idea. My ex is storing my dad's stuff that passed away for. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I have nowhere to put it, so I'm very minimal contact. That's an improvement for me. Yeah, and minimal contact even like I said, like my no contact journey was a journey. So I went from I don't know if you guys went through this, but I definitely went through I felt like I was trained in the relationship where I had to respond to them like right away. And if I didn't, I essentially we'll just say there was like repercussions from it, whether it's accusations or whatever. So I had to like detrain myself and unlearn that conditioning that I had for so long about that I had to respond to him right away. Um, so, like I said, I'm going to post a video about this at some point too. I had to set small goals for myself where I was like, okay, I'm not going to respond to him for an hour. And I remember I literally had to set a timer on my phone when I was at work one day. I was dying that whole hour. Like, I mean, I struggled hardcore for that hour the first time I did it. And as soon as my timer went up, I texted him, but I had to force myself to do these kind of things. And when that got more comfortable, I started to progress it to where I was like, okay, I won't respond to the next day, or I'm not going to answer his phone calls anymore. It'll just be text communication, so I had to set like small, because going just full no contact just seemed like this impossible task for me, like this huge thing that like I couldn't do it all at one time. So I had to break it down to bite-sized pieces. Okay, so this is a good question. What is one word that can describe this abuse to people who don't understand? Ooh. Narrowing it down to one word. Hmm, that's a really good question. Um, I don't know how to narrow it down to one word, but if I had to describe it in few words to someone, I would you lose your sense of self. Whatever word you want to put to that, but your whole identity and your whole self concept gets wrapped up in this person, and you lose who you are in these kinds of relationships. So I would break it down to that. It's just you lose yourself. I felt like I had been stripped down to nothing. Um, which is very, it was kind of almost like, I don't know if y'all had this dream when you were kids about where you showed up to school in your underwear. That's kind of what it felt like. Like it felt like a living version of that. I, I can feel my emotions welling up. It's similar to grief when you know you're about to just bust out and crying. But in this case, I just want to bust out in rage and want to scream. I completely understand that. Okay, so I think just based on comments and everything, I know the poll's still open, but um, it looks like managing emotions and the obsessive thinking are the top two things that are coming through. So, and honestly, that kind of makes perfect sense because those work hand in hand together. So, for those of you guys that don't know, if you are struggling with this and just kind of need like a practical plan and like step by step things, I do have a course that's online. It's all self paced and it is everything that I wish that I had had during my journey. It's called Breaking Free from Rumination course. It's how to reclaim peace and clarity after narcissism. It's 6 weeks. Like I said, it's self-paced. You can take as long as you want to, but it actually gives you strategies that you can do and it explains things and it helps you. It does have like there's a whole section in it about managing emotions, like a whole section that gives you a bunch of different strategies and stuff, which I'll talk about some of them today too. That way you can implement and try different things. But if you are struggling with that, go to the link in my bio on any of my platforms and you'll be able to find my course. Like I said, I had to figure all this out on my own. So that's why I wrote my course, so that way you guys could have the resource that I never had. So please check that out if it's something that you feel like you really need specific guidance on. Again, it's the Breaking Free from Rumination course. The link to that is in my bio. Um, so let's just kind of talk about managing emotions and the obsessive thinking. So one of the things I break down in my course is why this even happens. So y'all may have heard the term rumination before, which is just kind of a fancy term for obsessive thinking. And what I explain in my course is that there is a reason that we deal with this. And what we don't realize is during the relationship, we're actually constantly in the state of obsessively thinking and ruminating. So what that looks like in the relationship though is um it looks like the walking on the eggshells. It looks like um what version of them is coming home. It's kind of one of those, when they're talking to you and you're like, I don't know if this is true. Like you just kind of have that gut feeling that they're lying to you and you're trying to decide like, okay, is this a lie that I really want to figure out or do I just want to move on, let it go? But you're constantly in this state of ruminating because the clinical definition of that is just a negative thought pattern that's constantly repeating in your mind over and over and over again. What happens is after the relationship ends, this has become like a mental habit that we have that transfers after the relationship is over. Because unfortunately, the relationship ending is not a strong enough stimulus to break that habit. It's kind of like if you're trying to break any bad habit in general, you don't just break a bad habit, you generally have to replace it with a healthier habit. And so that's like the first section in my course. It really explains what it is and why we have it. So now that you're out of the relationship, obsessive thinking and rumination can be looking like you're replaying certain aspects of the relationship over and over and over again. Or maybe you're trying to piece certain things together, or you're stalking their social media. Maybe you're stalking the new supply social media. Maybe you're having this emotional dysregulation where you're just angry one minute and you're like sad the next minute, and then the next minute you're completely relieved that you're not dealing with them anymore. All of this is those signs of this rumination pattern. And the reason why I'm explaining this to you guys is because I want you to understand that it's a very normal process and part of the process of leaving. And it was also 100% the hardest thing for me to get over when I left my narcissistic ex. It felt very addictive. It felt very out of my control. And it was very frustrating. I was doing things I almost didn't recognize myself because I felt so debilitated by it. I mean, I was doing things like creating fake accounts on dating apps just to try to find him. Like, I mean, I felt insane. So I'm telling you all that so that way you understand it is normal and it is part of the process. So hopefully that kind of makes you feel a little bit validated. Um, so that's why it happens, is because like I said, it's a habit that has been developed over time. And when it comes to the managing the emotions, it's really important um, that we understand that managing the emotions, we don't want to ignore the emotions, which is what sometimes we tend to do as survivors. Sometimes we kind of end up like, okay, let's just say like one day you're just sad and you say to yourself, like, I shouldn't be sad because he or she was such a horrible person. Like, why would I be sad that this person's not in my life anymore? What that does is that almost accidentally invalidates your own feelings. And that's kind of like the last thing in the world that we want to do. So instead, we want to learn how to manage and to balance them, but not get into this place where we dwell, because this emotional dysregulation can spiral into the obsessive thinking, which is why it's not super surprising that the top two things on the poll was managing emotions and obsessive thinking. They really do work together. So again, in my course, there's I think I give like 6 or 7 specific emotional management strategies, but I'll talk to you about the 2 that worked the best for me. So the first thing that I would do is I would almost kind of words are hard. I would almost make a deal with myself. Not almost, I did. I would make a deal with myself when I felt like the emotions were getting a little bit too intense, or I knew that it was coming and I knew that I was about to have this really sad moment or whatever. And so I would tell myself okay, I'm going to sit in this feeling for 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes is over, I'm going to get up and go do something productive. So whether it was clean the dishes or let the laundry up that's been in my dryer for 5 days, whether it was go for a walk, whether it was call a friend and talk about anything but that, whether it was, if you're a craft person, you can do an arts and craft project, you can play with your dog, do something different, but allow yourself to sit in that feeling for 15 or 20 minutes. What you might be surprised by is that just giving yourself that permission to feel that feeling and to feel that emotion by putting a name to it, allowing yourself to feel it, saying out loud, I feel really sad right now. I feel really lonely right now. I feel really confused right now. It actually lowers the intensity of the emotion, because you're just, instead of fighting it and trying to push it off, you're doing the opposite and you're embracing it. And what I found was that I would say over half the time, if I had to put a number on it, I'd probably say 70% of the time, I didn't even need the full 15 or 20 minutes. There were some times where I did need longer. If I just, maybe I discovered there was this period of time where I was finding out information after the relationship was over, and that in itself can be very triggering. So if it was stuff like that, then I would just give myself an extra 10 minutes. But when the time was over, or I felt like I was good, or at least had a handle on it, I would literally get up and I would go do something else. I would physically redirect myself. And so again, what this allowed me to do was process the emotion, but not dwell in the emotion. And when you do that and you stop resisting and you stop fighting it, it allows it to kind of come and go a lot quicker. If any of you guys have young kids, I have a 3-year-old, right? Anytime I tell my 3-year-old, don't do this, inevitably, he does it. And I think that we sometimes kind of have that in our brains sometimes, where we tell ourselves, we try to resist something and it just comes up even like more intense, or we keep bottling up and bottling up and bottling up, and then something small happens and then we just explode because we've just been bottling the stuff up for so long. Like, if you just name it and just accept that it's there, it actually really does help. So that's the first one that would work really well for me. The other one that worked extremely well, I journaled like all the time, especially during this. I still journal actually. It's one of my top things that help keep my emotions and just my psyche regulated. I journaled every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I even brought my journal to work with me that way, in case like I needed to take a few minutes to just step away and just. I looked at it as kind of like a brain dump. Like, I was just kind of getting it out of my head and onto a piece of paper and just dumping it out, so that way I could just deal with it and move on. If I didn't necessarily have time to deal with it like in the moment, whether I was at work or something like that, then I would kind of go back to the whole like deal thing, where it's like, okay, I literally can't deal with this at the moment because I'm working or I'm this or I'm that. So when I get home, if I'm still feeling really heavy about this, I will deal with it then. So I didn't push it off in the sense where like I'm ignoring it. I'm just making a date with it later. Speaking of making a date, when it comes to, I'll go ahead and give you this one too. um, this one's really, really popular with a lot of my clients. I didn't do this one necessarily. Um, but the other thing that I highly recommend is make a date with yourself every day to just check in. Like, set aside 30 minutes out of your day and just ask yourself, how am I feeling today? What negative emotions am I feeling? What positive emotions am I feeling? It's kind of like almost like a internal journaling. I did it through writing it out on paper. Some people don't like that, and that's okay. As long as you're just setting that time, like making a date with yourself to check in some way, form, or fashion, it's going to help. Um, and I've seen a couple people ask about dreams on um, on every platform. Actually, dreams have been brought up. I found that when I started doing this more regularly, my dreams actually, because I did, I didn't have nightmares about my ex, but I would dream about him, which was very frustrating because it's like your subconscious reminding you. This is kind of, I've talked to my therapist about the dream part before too. Um, it's essentially the subconscious is trying to process things. So when I purposely set time aside to check in with myself, or I did the 20, like make the deal with myself or whatever, I actually noticed that my dreams started to be less frequent. They didn't completely go away like right off the bat, but they slowly and progressively started to get few and far between. And I think that the reason why that was happening is because I was allowing myself to process in my conscious mind and not leaving it to where my subconscious had to deal with it. Because that's essentially what's happening in our dreams, is our subconscious is trying to process because we're not allowing our conscious mind to sit down and process. So this did help me with the dreams. So hopefully that kind of answers that question with that. But again, you guys, if you need more strategies on this, try these out. But if you feel like you need more specific help on this, I have that course. It's Breaking Free from Rumination, How to Reclaim Peace and Clarity After Narcissism. It's in the link it's in the link in my bio on all platforms. Please check that out. I had to figure all of this out on my own. It was literally through trial and error. And I put together everything that worked for me. Somebody asked how much is the course. So there's two options. You can just buy it. It's $65 if you just buy it, or you can break it up into 3 payments of $24. I try to make it as affordable as possible. Like I said, it's 6 weeks. When you start one lesson, it gives you 5 days before the next lesson opens. So that way you have time to process the information for each week. So you can't speed it up, but you can slow it down and take however long you want to. Anybody that has the course also gets discounts on my coaching calls too. There's like links to my coaching that is cheaper that you can't get from anywhere else. So there is that as well. So just so you guys know, that is available. Any questions on those specific strategies that I just mentioned? I'm going to kind of scroll through comments and stuff too to make sure I didn't miss any questions, because I probably did. How do you unlearn things or habits a narcissist has trained you to do? Ooh. Okay, we'll just go to the texting thing. um, and then I'll get back to the obsessive thinking stuff. So one of the things that I was trained, like I mentioned, I was trained that I had to respond right away. And if I didn't, I was up to something or whatever. Like, I mean, full on panic attack that he would have, and just the accusations and all that. So I learned that I had to respond to him like right away. So in order to go no contact, it felt impossible for me. Like I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I set myself more attainable goals as opposed to like, "Oh, I'm just going to block him on everything and just go no contact." I knew I wasn't ready. So I held myself accountable. Like the first thing I did was, okay, I'm not going to text him back for an hour. I'd set a timer on my phone and I waited that whole hour. It was a very rough hour the first couple of times that I did it. And I would text him immediately back after that hour. And the more I got comfortable with that, then I would push it. So it's like, okay, now we're going to wait till 3 hours. Okay, now we're going to wait till the end of my work shift, or I'm going to wait till the next day, or like whatever it may have been. And I just set more attainable goals for that. That was one of the things that I was trained to do very early on in the relationship, until eventually it was, okay, I'm not going to talk to him on the phone. I'll only text him back. And then it was, I'm only going to text him for business related stuff, like the money he owed me or the phone plan or like all of that. But essentially what you have to do is you have to recognize what you were trained to do in the first place. Like you have to recognize your conditioning and then kind of flip that script on its brain, or on its head. You kind of have to tell yourself like, okay, I was conditioned to do this. So how do I flip that script? Like, how do I do something that can decondition myself from that training? So it kind of specifically depends on what you were trained for. I was trained to answer the phone while I was sleeping. I swear everybody went through that kind of training. Like everybody did. So yeah, it's kind of the same concept. You have to figure out what you were trained to do and then do things to redirect yourself. So what's the best way to handle no or low contact while still living together? No contact's probably going to be hard while you're still living together because they have essentially easy access to you for that. Excuse me. You can kind of do what I did, I guess, when I got to low contact, because I had again worked my way up to that, and keep it what I called business related. So whether it was financial stuff, whether it was the stuff that, like, he was paying me money every month for money that he owed me. So I had got it narrowed down to where I didn't contact him unless I was asking for his payment, about getting off the phone plan or the storage unit or anything like that. Like there was no personal conversations. Like I didn't tell him about my personal life. I didn't want to know about his, because he would try to tell me about all these dates that he was going on. Like I gave a shit. Sorry. And like I didn't. And so I finally had to tell him, like, I don't want to know. Like this is weird. Why would I want to know about this? Do you want to know about my dating life? Like I flat out said that to him. And he was like, well, no, not really. Like, okay, well then I don't want to know about yours. So we're not talking about this anymore. So when I had to be in contact with him, I just set those very clear boundaries where these are the things that we can discuss. And if you go outside of that, I'm not engaging in the conversation. But it's going to be hard to go no contact if you're still under the same roof. Someone mentioned gray rocking, keep it short and sweet. Absolutely. Like, no, as a lot of times what they want is they just want a reaction, whether it's positive or negative. Just for me, I just got petty enough to where it's like, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of what he's searching for. Can you talk about how to handle being discarded so easily? That's such a good question. Oh, okay. The thing we have to remember about being discarded by narcissistic or toxic people is we need to remember that it has absolutely nothing to do with us. And what I mean by that is Their actions, by the way, this isn't just about the discard, this is about all of it. The actions that they did against you are not a reflection of your lack of worth. What I mean by that is you could have been the absolute perfect partner. You could have done everything right. And probably for the most part, you were an excellent partner. Nobody's going to ever be a perfect partner in a relationship. It's not possible. But you could have been perfect. They still would have made the choices and decisions that they made because it's just who they are. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent it. And it's part of this journey into radical acceptance of just accepting that they are the way that they are. You're not going to understand all of it. And the reason you're never going to understand all of it is because you are not like them. In order to understand it, you would have to reduce yourself down as a human being. I don't know about you, it's not worth that for me. So understanding that them discarding you so easily is a reflection of the fact that they were no longer getting from you what they needed. So they went somewhere else and got it from somebody else. So, and I know that, and there's still, and understand, there's still pain that's associated with that acceptance, because the reality of the situation is we were all in. Like we were all in this. Like we loved them with our whole being and then some. So to understand, or to like realize that that was not reciprocated, there's a lot of pain to that. Like absolutely there is. So I'm not trying to minimize that. But you need to understand that it would have, if it wasn't you, it was going to be somebody else in that position. Like it's just who they are. And that sucks because there's nothing that we could do to prevent that. And there's nothing that there's no other way to explain it. So just don't internalize their actions or their discard as a reflection of your lack of worth. And again, one thing that their actions do to us sometimes is sometimes it hits on these negative self-beliefs that we have, and it can either create these new negative beliefs or it can emphasize or reiterate old ones that we have about ourselves. So like for me, when I found out that he had cheated on me for the last 5 months of our relationship, for me, it hit into a belief that I had had since I was like 12 about just me not being enough, like me not being attractive enough, me not being masculine enough, me not being enough in general. And that's why that wound felt so deep, because it hit on an old belief system. So in my course, there's a whole section about that too, because it's really important for us to ask some of these hard questions about why did I accept the behavior from this individual for as long as I did, because we have to answer those questions so we don't accidentally get ourselves into this situation again. So again, that's also in the course as well. For those of you guys that are kind of hopping on, it's the Breaking Free from Rumination course. The link of that is in my bio. There's a whole section about unlearning these negative self-beliefs. And that was probably one of the most difficult parts of this journey for me, because I kind of had to go even further back to figure out, okay, why did I allow this to continue for as long as I did? And that's a hard question to ask, because we really do have to figure all of that out. Okay, sorry if you're on TikTok. My phone alerted me there's a low battery, so probably pause there for a second. Okay, so this is actually a really good question. So there's a question over on Facebook about how do you stop putting together everything they did, even long after the separation, because essentially it's like I'm re-traumatizing myself. I talk about this in my course too, how I think that there is a part of the rumination and the obsessive thinking part that is a little bit healthy, because I do think it helps you reach acceptance. And here's why I think that. I do think that why are my words so difficult today? I do think that there is a portion of it where we do need to look back on the relationship without these rose-colored glasses on, so that way we can see them for who they really were. And again, there is a lot of pain associated to that, which is why we go back to the emotional management strategies that I mentioned earlier. But there's a portion of that is good for us, because what that does is it helps us kind of wake up out of the spell that we were cast or put under, so that way when hoovering attempts or reverse hoovering attempts or any of that happens, we're not necessarily tempted because we've seen them for who they are by going back and replaying some of this stuff. So anytime that I would, and this part is frustrating because you'll have these moments where like maybe you'll go like a month or two or maybe longer or a couple weeks or whatever it may be where you've not really thought about it a whole lot, or if you have, like, you've gotten over it really quick, but then something happens and it's like you connect something again, or you figure something out, or a mutual friend says something like, oh, have you heard that, have you heard what he posted, and blah blah blah. Like, that was always fun. Um and the reason why some of this happens is because sometimes we have to like get through the initial trauma of the relationship first and process some of that first. And then when we have done that, it's kind of like our brain takes a rest for a second. It's like, okay, I got that figured out. And then once it's rested for a little bit, it's like, okay, now here's this now. Like, deal with this now. So anytime that I dealt with that, I would just go back to the original things that were working. So like if you are working through the course, I would go back through all the strategies that I talk about in this course. I would go back to, okay, my meaningful activities. Like what are things that I can do that fill my cup and bring me joy? What are things that pour back into me? I would start focusing on my self-care, but not that there's anything wrong with this, but not in the way that like society defines self-care. Like I would do things that filled my cup, that like helped raise my spirits, is another way to say it. So I would do things that poured back into me. I would start journaling again if I wasn't journaling regularly. I would do all the things that helped me process the stuff at the beginning. So it's not necessarily that you are re-traumatizing yourself. It's that your brain now has the space to reveal something to you, because it's almost like it knows you can handle it at this point. So try to kind of take it as a sense of it's just further confirmation that you made the right choice. And if you feel like you're kind of going into this dwelling pathway with it, just I would kind of say this little phrase to myself of like, okay, Trey, you know what? This may have been what happened. Like if I didn't know for sure, I just connected something. This might have happened. But all that is just further confirmation that you made the right choice, and thank God that you're out of it. And I would just kind of let it be, and then I would go and do something. I did a lot of like physical redirection. So if you guys don't know the book and the journal that I wrote, which is this one, it's the Wellness Wheel. This was kind of like my literal saving grace. This goes along with my course really well, because the strategy that I put together is based off of a concept that my therapist taught me, which is the Wellness Wheel. And that's more about balanced life, but I turned it into kind of like a balanced practice of self-care, where I like built a tool belt of things that I knew helped make me feel better. So it's like quality time with my friends, quality time with my family, physical activity, like working out, doing the like societal self-care stuff, like going getting massages and getting my eyebrows done, whatever. Like I literally would have this array of things that I would go to. And so I started to kind of make a plan, which is what like this is. I would literally plan out like, okay, so what can I do tomorrow that can take care of me? I understand that sometimes we can't make ourselves the top of the priority list every time, but we do need to be on it. So like, even if the best thing that I could do tomorrow was doing my whole nighttime skincare routine and journaling, like I would write that down on my plan. And I still, to this day, I've been out of the relationship almost 3 years. I still do this practice today. When I first started it, I just literally was doing it on an Excel sheet. And what that did is it just, it made me more intentional about shifting my mental focus. So that way I didn't stay stuck in this obsessive thinking. So again, the journal that I did, it's the Wellness Wheel journal. You can either get a paper copy or there's a PDF version online too. Again, that's also in the link in my bio, but there's also other journals that are great too. I say that this is a journal. This is really kind of more of a workbook. If you want something that's kind of more journal, there's this one, which is From Fantasy to Reality. This is also in the link in there. This isn't mine, but it's a great one. This actually has like questions and stuff that you can work through. Or there's just like, this is just a really cute like blank journal. But this one's from Roller Coaster of Love. This one's hers. Those are all in there. And I have a bunch of resources in my link. But if you want, this is what helped me the most by far. it was 6 weeks of this changed my life. It really got me out of that obsessive thinking, and then a combination of the strategies that I talk about in my course. How do you move past the emotions when kids are involved? Oof. Okay, so I'll talk about this with mine. My perspective is probably going to be a little bit different depending on your situation because I didn't actually have kids with my narcissistic ex. I had kids from my first marriage, with, which that's a whole nother story. No bad blood there at all, but my kids were still involved in this situation. So to kind of put it into perspective, the reason why it was so confusing for me, I have shared custody with my children. So I have them 3 or 4 days a week, and then their mom has them 3 or 4 days a week. When the kids were at my house, that was when my ex was always at his best, which is what made it very confusing for me because I saw all this good in him because he actually, for the most part, was really good to my kids. Not necessarily for me, but to my kids, he was pretty good. And we had this like whole routine and like all this stuff, and my kids, they got attached to him, and then crap would always hit the fan when my kids went back to their mom's house. So that, like, I literally had this pattern. I'm sorry, I'm getting on a tangent, but that's what made it so confusing for me. It's one of the reasons why I stayed as long as I did. Well, the week that I kicked him out happened to be, which I'm very grateful for this, but it was when my kids were with their mom. So like literally when they were at my house, he was there. And the next time they came back, he was gone. Like I did not give him the privilege of saying goodbye to my kids. I know that was hard on my children, but because of what happened that night and how scared I was for my physical safety, I didn't trust him around my children anymore. So he lost the right to say bye to them. So I dealt with a lot of parent guilt, like a lot, because I felt guilty that I let this person into my circle. I felt guilty that they didn't say goodbye. I felt guilty that my kids essentially went through a second divorce because of me. There was a lot of guilt that I was dealing with. What I did with my kids, because they were confused. I mean, because they didn't see all of the bad. They saw a little bit of it towards the end, which was another reason why I left, because when he started to have mini rage episodes at me in front of them, I was like, we're not doing this, bro. I used some of those examples with him, and I was like, okay, do you remember when this happened? And they were like, yeah. I said, well, that happened a lot more than what you saw. And nobody should talk to your dad that way. Nobody should talk to you that way. Nobody should talk to your mom that way. Family doesn't do that to each other. And so I asked him to leave. I did ask my children, granted they were young, but I did ask them if they could, what's the word I'm looking for? If they could kind of like not ask me questions for just a little bit while I just kind of got better. It was like maybe 2 weeks, but I did ask them, like, if you can just not ask me questions for just a little bit, I promise I will answer them. I'm just really sad right now. Like, I was honest with them. I'm just really sad right now, so it's hard for me to talk about it. I have no idea if this is the actual question that you were asking, but I'm in it at this point. And then once that like initial time period was over, I would let them ask questions if they had it. A lot of times it was like, oh, I miss him, this or that. And I would tell them it's okay that you miss him. I know that you loved him. I would just validate their feelings, and that would be pretty much it. What I had to do with the parent guilt, which, by the way, that only lasted like maybe 6 months or so. Like, they didn't really bring him up a lot after that. What I had to do with the parent guilt is I had just had to work really, really hard at forgiving myself. And the way that I did that, and this is what I coach all of my clients on when they deal with this particular guilt, especially with kids and staying as long as they did, is I would tell them, or I'm sorry, what I would do is I would kind of almost emotionally put myself back in the relationship and ask myself, okay, well, why did I stay? What were some of the reasons that I did stay? So for a lot of people, it's not that I was stupid for staying for so long. It's that I was trying to keep my family together. That's a very pure motive. There's nothing wrong with that motive. Could we have left a little bit sooner and all that? Yes, but we're not talking about all of that yet. We're just trying to understand the story and what was going on in our brain that kept us there. For me, it was, well, he was great with the kids, even though he was rough whenever it left. Like, it was so good when the kids were there in my mind, that's part of the reason that I stayed. Another part of the reason that I stayed is I didn't want my kids to essentially go through a second divorce. Hell, I didn't want to go through that. Well, again, we weren't married, but we lived together. So emotionally, it was like another divorce. I didn't want to deal with all of that stuff. So it's not that I was stupid. It's that those were my motives that kept me there. I really wanted to make this work. I really wanted to XYZ. So when you can kind of remind yourself of the actual story that was going on at the time, you can tend to be a little bit more gracious towards yourself and really work on the self-talk. So if you are saying things to yourself like, I was so stupid for staying, or I was such an idiot for XYZ, you've got to stop that. Because what that does is it kind of keeps you in this cycle of emotional abuse. It's just the difference is you've now become your own abuser because you're saying all the things to yourself that your abuser used to say to you. And that has to stop. So we have to start talking to ourselves from more of a place of grace and less from a place of judgment. Super windy answer to that question. Hopefully I answered it somewhere in there. I have no idea if I did, but hopefully I did. Someone asked, do you think they ever realize how great of a person in the person's family they lost? Like, do they ever realize how good of a person they had, like with you? I think that they do, but I don't. If they do admit it, it's in this like, oh, woe is me kind of thing. Like my ex would say that to me a little bit. You deserve so much better than me. I hope you find someone that's so much better than I am because you deserve that, and blah blah blah. And to me, I think sometimes they say those things as a way to kind of like make you feel pity towards them, so that way it's like, and then you can kind of fluff their pillow. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think they know. Whether they'll admit it, I don't know. Do you think they'll ever change for someone else? I get this question a lot. Nobody has the power to change somebody else. This is what I need everybody to realize. You never had the power to change someone, and the next person that comes along doesn't have the power to change somebody else either. Do I think it's possible for people to change? Yes, I do. I'm not going to say that people can't change. Is it likely? No. So do I think that they will ever change for someone else? I asked myself that question a lot. The place where I ended up getting to just come to terms and have peace over that question was ultimately at the end of the day, it's not my concern anymore. Like if they do, great. But most likely no. Most of the time that answer is no. I just don't like saying that people can't ever change because I think people can, but they have to first accept the hurt that's in themselves that's allowing them to hurt other people that they've not resolved. And then they have to find some kind of way to make amends for the hurt that they caused other people. And it's a lot of work. And by the way, it doesn't happen overnight. So when they try to convince you that all of this change has happened and all of that, it does not happen overnight. Just like your healing journey doesn't happen overnight. So don't let them convince you that after 2 months, they're this totally different person. That's not possible. Like it's just not, it's not possible. The only thing they change is their mask. A little accurate. By the way, just in case I have any Alphabet Mafia fan on any of my lives right now, Lindsay Goodman and I are doing a support group. It is for the LGBTQ community, and it's an abuse survivors group for the queer community. We are having that this Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. We're only taking a max of 15 people, but we do still have a few spots left open. So if anybody is in that community and needs a safe place to share and just find other people to it's a support group. So if you feel like you need that or can benefit from that, please come join us. We do it once a month. This is only our second session, so that's just gotten started. Again, when in doubt, just go to the link in my bio and you'll find everything, but the registration in there is for that. So again, that's this Saturday, the 18th. It's called Polishing Off the Rainbow. And it's with Lindsay Goodman and myself. So please come and hang out with us. It also, there's a private Facebook group for that group as well, so you can stay in contact with people and with us. Okay, guys, I have about like 5 minutes left before I need to start getting dinner cooked for my fiance before they get home. So any last minute questions? So again, just a few reminders. Breaking Free from Rumination course that is in the link in my bio. Please go check it out. There's a whole, if you click on the link, there's a whole free preview towards it. My God, y'all, I'm so sorry with my words. There's a free preview, so you can just go and check all of that out as well. And it's got all my book recommendations, like all that kind of stuff. How are you able to fall back in love? That was a challenge. That was a real challenge. When I met my fiance, there was definitely a connection that was there. But you know, give me 1 second. I'm sorry, my dog's getting into something, and I will answer that question. Give me literally like 1 minute. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I have a puppy and she always gets into things at like the most awkward time. So, anyways, so how was I able to fall back in love? Honest to God, I really just did, and this is such a cliche answer, I hate it, but I really did do a lot of work on myself first. I just got to the point where I was like, okay, being single. um, sorry, I just saw this comment because I'm struggling with my words. They said, you need a yellow mug of coffee, I think. I probably do. By the way, the Yellow Mug Talk store is open. We've got the mugs finally made. There's water bottles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, crop tops, all that stuff. So go check that out. I was super excited. Officially launched today. But anyways, back to the question. So I diligently worked on myself for 6 weeks. Like that's why my course is 6 weeks. That's why my journaling wrote is 6 weeks. It's all the work that I did in that 6 week time period. And I genuinely worked every day diligently just on myself. And I know that's such a cliche answer. But the reason that I had to do that is because my therapist asked me a question that kind of punched me in the gut a little. And she said, Trey, if you accomplish like all of your goals and you succeed in everything that you want to succeed in and like all this, but you don't have a partner and you don't have someone, like if I'm not married or in a relationship, would it have less meaning? And if I was honest at the time, my answer was yes. And that meant that I was putting too much weight and too much of my value on if I was in a relationship, aka codependency. So I'm from the South, so sorry for this analogy. I had to get to the point where I can look at myself as like a pumpkin pie. Okay? Here's what I mean by that. So if you think about a pumpkin pie, you can have a pumpkin pie just by itself, but sometimes people like to get Cool Whip to put on top of their pie to kind of take it to that next level, right? I had to get to the point to where I realized I'm the whole pie. I'm all the ingredients that I need to make my own pie. And if I'm going to have anybody, it's the Cool Whip to help bring my life to the next level, to add to my life. But I don't need somebody to complete my life. And that's where I had to get. I had to get to the point where I was secure enough in myself that yes, it's okay that I want a partner and I want someone to share my life with, but I didn't need it in order to feel complete. And it took me a while to get there. Once I did, naturally, I swear to God, it always works out this way. I had gotten to this place where like I was enjoying being single. I was kind of just like playing the field, like whatever. And I met my fiance, and it was not supposed to be anything serious. It was literally just like grab a drink, but there was just something about him that just made me feel very safe, which, because of what I had been through, was a very, very huge deal to me. But I was still terrified. I realized that there was a whole new level and layer of healing that I had to do to just be in a relationship again, because triggers were very real, especially because of the infidelity that I dealt with. Um, but even during the relationship, while it was starting, I just had to constantly remind myself that even if not, and I had no indication that he would ever do something like what my ex did, but I just had to constantly tell myself, even if he ends up making the same decisions or he cheats on me or whatever, it is still not a reflection of me. When people do that, it's a reflection of stuff that's going on inside of them and hurts that they've not dealt with. So but here's what I also did, because anytime I would start a new relationship, like this practice, this whole like taking care of me thing would kind of like fall to the wayside. I didn't let that happen this time. I made some adjustments. So, like, let's say instead of going to the gym, because at the time when we first started dating, we lived like almost an hour apart. Um, so instead of like being at the gym for like an hour, hour and a half, like I would do like a 25 or 30-minute workout. So I was still taking care of myself, but I did make an adjustment so I could get over to see him sooner. But I didn't allow all this work that I had done on myself to just be tossed out just because I was dating somebody else, which I used to do in the past. So it's not even that I set boundaries with him. I set boundaries within myself to continue to make myself a priority. And I think doing that just allowed me to continue to have my own identity outside of the relationship. And ultimately, trusting other people is a choice. I chose to put my trust in my fiance. The person that I really needed to learn to trust again was myself. And I just trusted that I had learned enough, that I had worked on myself hard enough, that I was protective enough of the work that I had done, where I was going to safeguard that, and that if I saw red flags, that they would be addressed or I would go. So I don't know if that answers directly, like, how did I fall in love again? But it kind of does. It was the process with it. It's a good question, by the way. And I know I can say all of that now, y'all. That was a journey. It was hard. It was really hard admitting how much weight I was just putting into a relationship. And don't misunderstand me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to share your life with somebody. We are relational beings. I believe that it's normal and it's natural. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting that either. Just don't make it to where it is a part of, like, you are incomplete without it, if that makes sense. You are enough. You're the whole damn pie. Okay. All right, guys. If I don't hop off now, I'll stay on too long. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. I really appreciate you guys coming on and hanging out with me tonight. This was very impromptu live. Y'all asked some great questions. We're super interactive, and that always makes this easier. I get nervous on lives because I don't know what I'm going to talk about. But if y'all have any questions on anything, please just go to the link in my bio. Every single resource that I have is there. My new shop is open, my Yellow Mug Talk shop. I still can't believe I have merch. That's just so weird. To me, I never thought that I would have it. But now that it's here, I'm kind of obsessed with it. So y'all go check that out. That launched today. My course is on there. My coaching is there. I have a group coaching with Dr. Carrie McAvoy that's starting on March 4th. Sorry, my phone just did it again. Okay, sorry. I know TikTok paused there for a second. I also do have a free newsletter as well. I will never charge for this newsletter. It comes out once a month. It gives you self-care tips. It highlights a different creator. That creator gives a book recommendation. It has a quote of the month. I'm never going to charge for that. You can sign up for that on either my website or the link in my bio as well. Everything's in there. Just please go check it out. If y'all have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And again, just thank you guys for your support and for all the encouragement that you guys give. And I hope that y'all just continue to know, again, I need to put this on a shirt. You're the whole damn pie, sis. You keep doing you and know that you are worth so much more than they were ever capable of giving you. And I'm proud of you and all the work that you're doing. Everybody's no contact victories, super exciting. I'm proud of y'all for that. And y'all just have a great evening. Stay safe, stay balanced, and I will see y'all in the next live. Bye, you guys.